Well, after starring on the football field at Baldwin Park High School and accepting a football scholarship to the University of Utah, found himself working as a background player on a show called Ozzie and Harriet. He then became a regular on that show, and after being featured in several Elvis Presley motion pictures and on the show Dragnet, he was offered the co-starring role opposite Martin Milner in ADAM-12, a show still being seen in reruns. Countless television and motion picture performances to his credit. He's found time, however, to serve on SAG's board of directors and has received the Ralph Morgan Award. His great asset to his profession and our community is Kent McCord.
Thank you, Chuck. Well, it's indeed a pleasure for me to be here to help honor Ed. Ed and I have never really worked professionally together unless you count Laugh-In the Hollywood Boys Choir, if you remember that, that consisted of Glenn Ford, John Wayne, Ed Asner, Charles Nelson Riley. Who else was in there? Marty Milner, myself, and you. But Ed and I really intersected in the early 70s when I was running with a group of people who wanted to change the direction of the Screen Actors Guild, and we formed a slate, and Ed in 1972 wrote an introductory to our group and our platform that we put forth. And a number of years later, and Ed is probably going to kick me right in the fanny for having done this to him, but a number of years later, many of that group went to Ed and asked him if he would run for the president of the Screen Actors Guild. And Ed looked at me and he thought, that I might be a worthy candidate, and I said to him, no, if I had a show like he had, that I might do it. But that I didn't, and if you don't have a show, that service to the Screen Actors Guild could take 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of your time. So we convinced Ed to work, and he said, explain the thing about having a show to me. And I said, well, you have the show, and then you know exactly how much time you can dedicate to the Guild. And so Ed consented. He ran for the presidency of the Screen Actors Guild and won. And immediately following that, he was involved with a group called Medical Aid to El Salvador. And Ed had discussed his commitment to this group to us, and I assured him that no other president of our union had ever given up their own personal politics nor their own personal drives to help better mankind that had ever run for the Guild in the past. But Ed found himself on the steps of the Justice Department giving $25,000 that had been raised of not union funds, but of other funds to Medical Aid for El Salvador, and it created a firestorm in this community. Ed, in his service to our union, to our community, has done amazing things on behalf of actors everywhere in the world, not just in Hollywood. But those 4 years that he served as the president of the Screen Actors Guild, and I was lucky enough to serve 2 years as the first vice president while Ed was the president, we had gone to Sacramento to help stop discrimination against actors in automobile insurance. We also had gone up there to and stopped things that could have damaged performers in this industry. And as this industry in America sets the tone for the rest of the world, it's helped actors everywhere. But Ed Asner, I can only say to you, as I have many, many times, I love you. And when somebody out in the hall asked me a question, you're one of the few people, and you have always answered the call when needed. And he has never said no, and it's just not to any cause. Ed is very discriminate in the causes that he picks, but they are all to help humankind. And, I love you, and so does my wife, by the way.
He's been a successful television actor since the 1970s, although he's taken on a wide variety of roles. He's best known for his portrayal of the photographer Dennis Price, nicknamed the Animal, opposite Edward Asner in Lou Grant. Well, his believability was underscored when the Associated Press carried his photograph of a major fire near a Lou Grant filming location. Since 1995, he and his wife, Kathy Connell, have served as producers of the annual Screen Actors Guild Awards. In fact, He was an officer with SAG from 1980 to 2002. Darryl Anderson.
31 years ago, my paths crossed Ed's at the first table reading for Lou Grant. He came in big as life, and as somebody said back in his Chicago days, he walked like a man who meant to leave footprints on the earth. Thank God I'd been prepared for a force of nature like this. You see, when I was 17 and living in the very, very, very waspy enclave of Bellevue, Washington, I took emergency instruction in Jewish humanities from my friend, little blue-haired, little blonde-haired, blue-eyed Stuart Wilner, who was 16, and his lessons, though informal and sandwiched between our usual teenage anxieties, were of great duration. During one of these sessions, he undertook to enlighten me by explaining the meaning of the word mensch, which I would hear bandied about in Hollywood in years to come. Now, the literal translation, Stuart told me, is human being, but that's just the dictionary meaning. That won't do you any good. What it means, in the larger sense of the community, is that to be a mensch, you must live up to all the responsibility you have, and when you're able to do that, you must assume more. Well, there you have the essence of Ed. 20 years after that conversation, I got to introduce Stuart and Ed. Little blonde-haired, blue-eyed Stuart, who had unknowingly prepared me for Ed so long ago in Bellevue. He stuck out his hand. He said, "Hi, Ed. I was Darryl's Jewish father before he found you." And Ed, taking Stuart's full measure, said, "You don't look Jewish." But Ed is a guy who's always taking on more responsibility from more people. And there's nothing wrong with helping people. It's now long ago and far away enough that I no longer feel any need to be coy about what happened to Ed and to all of us who worked on Lou Grant back on May the 6th, 1982. We all, every one of us, lost our big head start and had to go back with the pack. And we never recovered the lead we'd held until that day. Because some people thought there was something wrong with Ed's helping people in El Salvador. Now, not too long ago, I saw a rerun of the biography they did on Ed, and it revisited his involvement with medical aid for El Salvador. It included footage of the streets of San Salvador. There were corpses in the streets. Looked to me like people there needed help. There's nothing wrong with helping people, Nothing wrong with helping people seems like a pretty mild observation until the thing you never expect happens, until somebody questions it, challenges it. The Reverend Falwell, who, if there is any justice, is watching Lou Grant reruns in hell, and then Congressman Le Bottier and Vidal Sassoon and the Kimberly Clark guys all questioned it. And Bill Paley himself finally questioned it. We live in a land that holds freedom to speak without fear of reprisal most dear, and when we see that reprisals do happen, it's unbearable to us. I suppose that explains why all of us in Lou Grant had to fade away. We were living painful reminders of something that just can't happen here. But it gave each of us a chance to consider that simple, old-fashioned idea that there's nothing wrong with helping people, and to reaffirm that, damn it, it's true. It gave all of us pause to reflect on our precious freedom of speech, and what happens if we only use it to say things that please the powers that be. As we've all seen, Ed has gone right on helping people. Defenders of Wildlife, the Heifer Project, the ACLU, Death Penalty Focus, Amnesty International. But let's get down to what's really important. He's gone right on creating indelible characters on the screen. I mean, save the deer and the cows is fine. But let's not forget, he's one of the finest actors of our lifetimes. And whoever's the youngest person in the room, your lifetime too. There won't be another guy like this. Lou Grant, Axel Jordash, Captain Davies, they've been joined by Gil Jones from Thunder Alley and Principal Danzig from the Bronx Zoo, and Wilson White in Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, and by Santa Claus. And the best part is there's more where those came from. Ed, you're an old bear. I love you. I love you. We all love you. Through your acting, you've shown us who we are. Through your menshiness, you've shown us who we can be if we try and must be. Nothing wrong with helping people. Nothing at all.
Thanks for joining us. You know, I can already feel the excitement building for our next Hollywood Media Professional Celebrity Showcase.